I'm guessing everyone can tell that I'm not Dr. Terri Mathews, not her, but unfortunately she could not be here this morning, so I'm filling in for the Math and Science Resource Center. So definitely looking at engaging students outside the classroom. So next slide. Okay, so if you offer it, they will come. That is our title of our presentation, and basically we're going to look at why the Math and Science Resource Center was created, what we've done in the past few years with it, and what we plan on doing in the future. Perfect storm. For many of my faculty and staff that's out in the audience, my seasoned ones, you can probably remember when we had remedial math, 097 and 098. Well, in 2007, around 2007, we actually eliminated 097 and 098. For our students then, they had to take the math placement test in order to get into math. But they had to take the math placement test. That requirement was actually eliminated, and we went to SATs and ACTs. And what we found was when students had to go straight into Math 102 and for some of them Math 101, we noticed some things. We noticed that we went from increased enrollment. We went from hundreds of students to taking the class to thousands of students taking these classes. And we also noticed something else. The courses that they were taking, the death rate for them, and we're going to explain what death rate is, surprisingly, they went up. As you can see, our cemetery. We noticed that with 3 classes, that the DFWI rate actually went up. And surprise, surprise, it was college algebra, pre-calculus, and general chemistry. The dean of our college really looked at that very harshly, and we were really trying to figure out what could we do to help our students. And when I say our students, I don't mean just the College of Science students, but students across the board. I know many of you are from other colleges, and many of your students are taking college algebra and pre-calculus, and maybe even for some of you, general chemistry. I know engineering and maybe exercise science may be out there. So we wanted to really help those students and find a way to do that. That gave birth to the Math and Science Resource Center. So the Math and Science Resource Center basically is a center where we can actually give tutoring assistance to our students for college algebra, pre-calculus, and general chemistry. Pre-calculus actually to Math 163, and general chemistry all the way up to Organic 2 is actually provided in the Math and Science Resource Center. With the Math and Science Resource Center, we were looking for that perfect formula, that what we call the magic bullet, to make sure that our students are being successful in those classes. So one of the things that they started doing was having a variety of hours, longer hours, for our students to actually get tutored. We also had online tutoring help with smart thinking. I don't know if many of you are aware of that, but that's actually through Blackboard, so students can actually access that 24 hours a day. We had recitations at a point in time with our adjunct faculty, and we even had our students actually have study groups, and this was actually in a variety of locations such as the dorms and the library during that time. And with general chemistry, we also had online video tutorials. One thing I didn't mention earlier, the Math and Science Resource Center, when it comes to tutoring, it is all the students. Students are actually tutoring other students in those particular categories. These are students who have been hired and trained, which I'll go into in another slide, and they've actually been through the classes themselves. These are not just students we just picked up. These are undergrad students who have been through the particular courses, and they actually have a certain GPA they must keep and have when they're hired. So we've got qualified students who are actually tutoring at the Math and Science Resource Center. Assessment. So now that we've birthed this Math and Science Resource Center, we had to assess it. We have to make sure that it actually is doing what we set out to do. So we were looking at their course grades. We looked at the DFWI rate, or their those final grades. We also looked at comparing year to year. So we looked at the group that was tutored and actually those who were not tutored. And then we also did a satisfaction survey. Just like CLT, we want to definitely assess, and evaluate. So our students actually, when they come into the Math and Science Resource Center, they are given an evaluation of their tutors. So they can actually say, I was helped, I received great help with this, or I did not receive great help, or this person did not help me. You can actually see that feedback on a daily basis from our students when they come in, because that's actually gathered daily and we look at it daily. The analysis section, or the data. What you can really see from this is that the students who actually went to the Math and Science Resource Center, their grade average was actually higher and the DFWI rate for them was lower than those who did not. Surprise, surprise, if you go, you actually have higher grades. But that is what we found, and that was across the board, and not just in one particular course, but in 102, Precalculus, 162, and General Chemistry. With these slides, we were looking at the students who had a low SAT and looking at those who went to tutoring with the SAT score and those who did not. Slide. You can see the grades and the DFWI rate for those who went versus those who did not. Next slide. Thank you. And as you're going to go through, I'm going to the next slide, you can see that those students who went, they did have an average, a higher average than those who did not. We looked at it from, like I said, college algebra and also Precalculus. And you also can look at it from the Precalculus right here, tutoring versus no tutoring. And this was looked at from fall 2008 all the way to 2010. And as you can see, those students who did go, like I said, did have the higher grade. General Chemistry, you can actually see the same thing versus those who went and those who did not. Next slide. But we noticed those students who actually went, and we looked at it really closely at Precalculus and General Chemistry, those who did have a lower SAT actually took advantage of the Math and Science Resource Center more, and they went in at a higher frequency, and they actually had a higher grade. Now that was a little surprising to us. We thought it might be the opposite. The students who had the higher SAT may decide to go versus those who had lower, but that's what we found. So that maybe brings up the question, what can we do to bring the students in who maybe possibly have a higher SAT to make sure that they're getting help at an earlier time versus those who are not going, so that they can be successful as well. Now, one of the other things we also did with the Math and Science Resource Center was had chemistry online tutorials. And this is very unique. This is on the College of Sciences website. We actually had students to actually be videotaped, and they actually went through the problems of what you would see for chemistry homework. Chemistry faculty actually developed the problems, and the students actually work through them. So you can actually see a student talking and then actually working through the problems. So once again, supplemental instruction to not just have it at the Math and Science Resource Center, but actually something they can actually view and engage them outside the hours of the Math and Science Resource Center. With the surveys that we talked about, or the evaluations, we really take that very seriously. When a student has comments, or we actually see comments for various students but saying the same thing, we take that under heavy consideration. And one of the things we like to also make a point of, Leanne White is the person who manages the Math and Science Resource Center at this point in time, and she also looked at the comments, and a lot of the changes that were made from those comments came from her. For example, one of the comments from several students actually said, you know, we really like going to the Math and Science Resource Center, but when we go in, we don't exactly know who's the tutor and who's actually the students. I mean, everyone kind of looks the same. So one of the things they instituted was actually t-shirts. So the tutors have very bright, I would say, tutor t-shirts to let them know who's actually being the tutors and those who are just students coming in to be tutored. So that's something. We also make sure, once again, the tutors are actually given training. They're also evaluated about twice a semester, so they can kind of see how they're doing, and if they're not doing well, or if they're getting comments that they have some concerns, they're also being talked to about that and given appropriate feedback, so they can also, same way with professors, so they can be better at what they are doing. With the marketing, if you call them, they will come. We have to get the word out. So many of you, I know, receive emails from our office regarding Math and Science Resource Center, our hours for the fall and spring. We put flyers out, emails, and for many of you, has anyone seen the golf cart with donuts go around? Has no one seen that? Okay, well, in the fall and the spring, we actually have a golf cart that we've done, and we have the phrase, "Donut fall behind." Okay, yeah, it's a little corny, but it really works. And what we do with the donuts, we have the donut in the bag, and we have attached the Math and Science Resource Center information, and we're always yelling out, "Do not fall behind," or "Go to the Math and Science Resource Center." Believe it or not, in the morning, you can catch some really hungry students out in the morning, and they are very receptive of, "Hey, donut, oh, donut, and do not fall behind. Yeah, Matt, I'll be there. Yeah, can I get an extra donut? Yeah, definitely." So yes, it's a little on the funny side, but it definitely got the word out to students, to those who did not know we had a Math and Science Resource Center or some assistance, to get them out there. So next steps, we really want to take this to the next level. So some of the things that we're going to do, and we're very excited about, is having another home in the Learning Commons. We're actually now housed in the Oceanography building, so we'll also be in the Learning Commons as well. We're extending assistance in tutoring and math for teacher prep programs. So I believe the programs are Math 302 and 335 will now also have tutoring and to help with that. And also using peer mentors for recitation. So bring back recitations, but instead with faculty, possibly with students. So it is a great resource. We encourage everyone to really push the students to go to that and to really utilize that, and hopefully, like I said, engaging them outside the classroom as well. So thank you.